Now for something completely different. Well, what's up guys, and welcome back to Project Time Garage. Well, I finally did it. I pulled the trigger on a bike that I have wanted pretty much all of my adult life. This is the 1986 Honda XR600r. And they had a good reputation about them, I'll say that. You know, see, I grew up with dirt bikes. I had some kind of two-wheeled vehicle from probably around 8 or 9 years old, maybe 10, all the way up till now, with, you know, brief spells in between there when I didn't have something. But my first bike was a Honda Elsinore MR50, a little two-stroke Honda, and got it for Christmas of, it had to have been 78, 79, and through the years had all kind of stuff: Suzuki RM 125, Sweat Bee, Suzuki RM 125. I've had old Suzuki TS's, KX's. I've had pretty much everything. Even had some street bikes along the way, but I've never had a true big bore trail bike before, and that's kind of what this is all about. I just wanted something. I live on a very sizable piece of property here, and there are trails and stuff back behind my house that just scream for a bike like this. And you know, being a pretty hefty guy myself, well, you kind of need a bike that's got a little bit of oomph to it, and they really deliver in that department. Being a big bore bike like this, they tend to have just really good down low torquey lugging. They're just a torque monster, and just creeping through trails, easing along in second gear, you pretty much just never have to downshift. First is almost useless on most trails. They're especially nice on those nice leisurely rides where you do a lot of sitting rather than standing. They're just really comfortable like that. But when it comes time to, you know, to put some power to the ground, they will absolutely do it. In fact, if you're a little bit ham-fisted, it's pretty much nothing but a wheelie and rooster tail machine all day long. They're extremely torquey bikes, which again make them really good for, you know, someone of my stature. The bike weighs just a little over 300 pounds, which, well, believe it or not, that outweighs me by a margin. And as you can tell, it's exactly the right size for me. I tend to gravitate toward these older bikes like this because they're very simple. This particular one, you know, being air-cooled, I actually prefer. I know a lot of people probably disagree with me on that for various reasons, but to be honest with you, the liquid cool bikes that I've had, the last one I had was a DRZ400, and it was a fast bike, and it was light, and it was nimble, and it was cool, and whatever. But man, those radiator sides, you lay it over on a trail and crush one of those radiator sides, you're pushing it home. Yeah, you're done. You know, these things here, these old Hondas and old Suzukis and old Kawasaki's, air-cooled, simple technology, they just tend to last. And if you take care of them and maintain them halfway, they'll probably outlive most of the people, including me, watching this video. All of these bikes like this that are in this family, the XL600, the XL350, the XR350, all of those, these are single cylinder bikes with 2 carburetors, and as such they are extremely susceptible to flooding. So basically you get 1 or 2 chances to start it, and after that you get to wait for a while and start over. So there's an entire procedure that goes along with starting these, and I had an XL350r before this that was the same family of engine as this, and it was no different. I mean, there's no electric start, it's kickstart only, and you know, there's a cold starting procedure and there's a hot starting procedure. If you screw it up, time goes by. So especially when they're hot, they're even worse when they're hot. This particular bike's got a lot of compression. There's no just pulling the Kickstarter out and punching it. It'll punch back and hurt you. So you got to really go through it. We'll go through that whole little starting procedure here in a few minutes. when I show you a little more about the bike. But anyway, this one came up on Marketplace, and it was just the right time. I'd happened to just now sell the Nissan Pathfinder that, if you haven't seen the series on this channel, I'm going to stick a link up there to that. Anyway, I had bought that years ago and done a bunch of work to it and sold it, and this bike came up, and you know, I'm not going to say it was really cheap, because it really wasn't, but it had a lot going for it in the way of I know its pedigree, I know where it's been, I know who's had it. It was actually actually the guy was older than me that had owned the bike pretty much its entire life, so maintenance has been done regularly, and all of the things about it that make it a good bike are there, and again, I'll show you all those things as we go along. My goal for this project, it may end up being a little bit of a series. I've got quite a bit of stuff I want to do to it. Mechanically, it really doesn't need anything. It starts and runs just beautifully. So I don't know how much we'll actually get done to the bike today, but today is going to be a good start. We're just going to get rolling. I want to introduce you guys to the project. I don't know how many installments there will be to the series. There will probably be at least 2, probably going to be more than that, probably more like 3 or 4. But let me go through the things, I guess, in order of importance that we're going to do to it. First, let me say this. It is far from perfect, but I'm not going to turn it into a showpiece. That's not my deal. I intend to ride the bike. I intend to ride the bike a lot. This tank, this is a high capacity tank that you see a lot of bikes outfitted with who are riding like in the mountainous regions, like in Colorado, Idaho, places like that. Places where there's, you know, miles and miles and miles of places to go. And having this extra capacity tank that keeps you from having to, you know, carry more fuel behind the bike or whatever, on the sides or whatever. I don't really care about that here, so I don't need the capacity. What I do care about, though, is, if you know me and you watch this channel any length of time, you'll know that I am a sucker for returning stuff back to, you know, closer to the way it was when it was, I don't want to say new, but more original. I don't like having, you know, I don't know, it's a weird thing. I don't like having things all jacked up. I like to have stuff original. I like for people to look at that and say, that's a pretty nice old original looking bike, right? I don't like the white tank. This is not the color for the bike. The tank is supposed to be red, and it's supposed to have a big decal here on it. Also, this headlight surround is incorrect for the bike. It's supposed to be red. My only thing I can guess is it got broke at some point, and somebody probably saw how expensive they are to replace and said, nope, we'll buy one of those. I already have the tank, so that's going to be the very first thing I do, is slap this tank on there. Also, there's supposed to be a speedometer on these bikes here, and this one doesn't have its speedometer, or it's just an odometer. I've seen both. I don't know what this one had, but I think it was a speedometer. I could be wrong. Somebody, I'm sure, will correct me down in the comments. But anyway, we're going to put a Trail Tech Vapor on here today. If you don't know what that is, it's just a little onboard LCD that shows things like, you know, speed, RPM, engine head temperature, trip odometer, and things like that, that are just handy to have and really nice to have if you're going to ride the thing on the road. And I intend to ride this thing on the road. See, that's one of the biggest things about me purchasing this particular bike is it's tagged, it's insured, it's in my name, it's titled as a street bike, which makes it a dual sport, and exactly what I was looking for. The other things we're going to do here, we're going to address these hand guards because, well, they're purple, and, well, they're purple. So we're going to take care of that. We're going to take care of these hand grips. You can see they've been wired on there, and this one's not so bad, but this one over here is kind of gooey, sticks to your fingers, and I don't like that. We've got a headlight switch here, and we've got a high-low beam, which is, I think, off, low, and high, if I'm not mistaken, so I don't know why there are two. I will get into that later. And then the kill switch. I would like to replace this and this with, you know, one I guess control center that has, you know, turn signal, left, right, headlight, kill, all that stuff on one, you know, on one component. That would make life a lot easier. So that'll be something we'll end up doing. Since we are going to ride this on the road some, this is not like a commuter bike, but if I want to hop on it, run to the store, that's kind of what I'm talking about. I'm not gonna, you know, we're not driving to Montana on it or anything. But since I do intend to ride it on the road, it needs turn signals. Now, in my state, I'm in Tennessee, and you don't have to have turn signals really on motorcycles or anything. Hand signals work. I'm not using hand signals. So I did buy a new set of these bark busters that have the turn signal integrated into them. So that will be taken care of. I have new decals for the bike. I've got these yellow side panels. I've got replacement swing arm decals for it. I've got the decals for the other tank, for the correct tank that will be going back on it. At some point, we're going to take care of this engine case, and we're going to, you know, paint it and sort of spruce it up just a little bit, make it look a little bit better. I've got all new packing for this muffler, so we're going to end up taking this thing and probably pulling it apart and repacking it. We'll put it back together. And a replacement seat cover. I've got one here. I don't know how quickly I'm going to put that back on, because this cover, you know, it's starting to show its age a little bit. It's got some cracks here, and it's got a repair here and a repair up here. So it's not great, but it is the original Honda cover. So, you know, that's saying something. I don't know if I'll put that on immediately or not. Also, I noticed this this side case, the stator cover over here, it's been JB welded, which that's a fairly common thing. You see that quite a bit. So I'll find one of those off the eBays and bring that. Shouldn't be a big deal. We're also going to have to pay attention to electronics on the bike. I had the seat off here the other day, just kind of looking around just to see what's going on with it. See, these didn't have charging systems and all that. These were supposed to be, you know, basically just enough voltage to run a headlight and tail light and make the bike spark. And that's pretty much it. They didn't come with regulator rectifiers and all that. They didn't come with batteries. So hence no electric start, no electronics, none of that. So I know we're going to have to pay attention to it, because somebody has replaced the stator in this, and from what I looked at earlier, there is a aftermarket regulator rectifier under the seat, and as opposed to batteries, they've got two decent sized capacitors under there, but they're just kind of, it ain't right. So I'll pay attention to that. Ideally, I would like to put a switch here on the bike so that I could kick the switch on, have a small battery. I don't know if I'll use like 18650 cells or if I'll get a flat battery pack or something. There's not a lot of room to work with under these seats, so you kind of have to be careful what you do. But very small battery. I don't need anything other than really enough voltage to run the Trail Tech, because I don't think there's going to be enough voltage there with the headlight. I think it's going to fluctuate. But anyway, on this aftermarket stator, I think I saw where there is another set of AC outputs that are just hanging out there that aren't being used. So it could be that we add another regulator rectifier to it and bring that to the Trail Tech and put the battery on that circuit, and we're good to go. Also for turn signals, I need those on the same output of the alternator. These stators, they put out AC voltage, so you got to convert that to 12 volts DC, and that's what the regulator rectifier does. It just takes that AC, clips it, produces 12 volts, and then the regulator part of it keeps that voltage from just going crazy, because when you rev the bike up and the alternator turns faster, it spits out more AC voltage, and then the regulator has to kind of clip that down so you're not, you know, so you're not charging your battery at, you know, 30 volts or whatever. So we're gonna have to pay attention to that. I don't care about having the headlight and tail light come on with a key. I don't care about having the headlight and tail light working with on the battery or anything like that, because when you kick the bike over, you got lights and you're good to go. That's a basic list of the things that we're going to do. I would do a cold start on it and, you know, run you guys around the field with it, and we will here in a second. But before I do that, I want to get this tank off and get the new one on it. And I'd like to get this seat off, and we'll take a look together and see a little more about the electronics and what isn't there and what needs to be bought and what we're going to do and how we're going to do it and to what extent we're going to do it. Let's push it in the garage here, where it's a little quieter and a little warmer. Get it apart, and then once we get the other tank back on it, I'll probably go ahead and stick the decals on that tank and look at these electronics. Then we'll fire it up and, you know, send it down the road. I'd like to put the trail tech on it today, see how that works, but, you know, if we get to it, we get to it. If not, not. So see you inside. Welcome to the inside. I guess the first order of business is going to be getting the seat off and then the tank off. And then once that happens, we'll go ahead and set the new tank or the used replacement tank back on there. I hope that fan in the background isn't too noisy for you guys, but if it is, I'm just gonna have to apologize for it because it is hot. As a matter of fact, trees are spontaneously combusting outside. It's like 9,247 degrees, if you believe that. Anyway, get this seat off. There are 2 bolts underneath on the sides, so let me zip those out. We'll set it off. Oh, remember I said there was a couple of bolts under there, right? Well, only one of them matters because this right here has happened. Bolts are supposed to go through like this, hold them on, but that one has, looks like maybe an angry rat got a hold of it, possibly. I don't know. For the tank itself, so we remove the tank hold down assembly. And let's see if that's the only thing that holds it in. I think that is. And on the front side, we have 10mm bolts, one on each side, hold the tank down. Additionally, we have the fuel cutoff, or the fuel hose. So I'll probably just pop that loose from the carburetor. Doesn't even appear to have a clamp on it. We'll fix that when we put it back together. Like so. And at this point, two 10mm, and we're ready to pull it. One. If my calculations are correct, we should be able to lift the tank. We can. Wow, this sucker's still got a lot of fuel in it. Like a lot of fuel in it. Well, I'm actually glad to see that all of this sound deadening material, or this anti-vibration stuff, is on here. That's kind of cool. We have our coil here and our CDI up here. This is actually the oil tank for the bike. So you'll see this is where you check your oil. And there's the oil feed line going down. That's a better shot of both carburetors there. This bike is extremely original. I mean, very, very original, which I really like to see. I don't see that very often. Most everything I get has been, you know, butchered within an inch of its life. And here's a shot of the electronics, as it were. This is what I was talking about. These are the 2 capacitors, and this is the rectifier, or regulator rectifier. I assume it's a regulator and rectifier. I'm not even really sure about that. I've got to go look it up and see what I've got here. This is the lead that comes down, or comes up from the stator. And you see I've got a couple of white wires here that are not used, and I kind of think that is a separate coil on the stator. I've got to wring those out and just see what I do have there. But needless to say, this stuff here really needs to get changed. It's not exactly right. We're kind of sorting through some of what's going on here. I want to call it a mess, but it's not really a mess. It's just somebody has, you know, fixed their bike up to have some capacitance and a rectifier. And that's basically all it boils down to. They're using these capacitors in the place of, kind of like in the place of a battery, just to store a little bit of charge. Obviously they won't store for long, but I'm sure they help the headlight out a bunch. So this is coming up from the stator, this black bundle here. Pink wire, obviously it goes over and grounds right here. The red and black wire, that should be our impulse coil. This should go up to the CDI to tell the CDI it's time to fire. And we have the yellow lead, which I'm assuming is one of the AC windings that feeds into the rectifier. The red lead comes out of the rectifier and goes to the positive side of the capacitors here. So that should be our plus 12 volts out. Other side of the capacitors are going to go to ground. So that should be that. Only other thing we got here is a green wire, which in Honda's world, almost universally, green is ground. So that's what all of that stuff is. Now, what I'm not sure of is what these other two white leads are for. Most of the time, you can use process of elimination, you know, your impulse coil, your ground, and usually about everything else that comes out of there are different windings on the stator for, you know, different things. So it could very well be that all I have to do is just buy another rectifier, and maybe I can rectify this and have basically two 12-volt systems going on the bike. I don't really know. What I am going to do though is I am going to start the bike up, let it idle, and we're going to take some measurements here at I guess at this point here, because I want to see how many volts I'm getting, because, you know, 12, 13, maybe 14 at the top. That's going to be about all we can handle. If this thing is shooting up to 15, 16, then I'm hesitant to try and put the Trail Tech on there. I'll have to do something else first, like get a battery. So, so that's where we're going to go first. This really awesome space here that could be for a small battery is actually the air intake for the bike, so that won't work. If we're going to put any kind of battery system on it whatsoever, then it's probably going to have to sit here, and it can't be very deep because, you know, that tire comes way up into this, so it'll have to be very compact and very up here if we're going to do it. I don't know if we're going to do it or not, but if we're going to do it, probably also maybe it wouldn't hurt to pull the side cover off here and see what we have for space under here. It could be that we could maybe, nope, can't put a battery under there. So that's a big no. I would say we'd pull this side off and look, but just kind of peering down through there, same situation. Pretty much all of this section here that you might stick a battery in was provisioned for air intake because, well, the bike didn't come with a battery. They didn't intend it. So there's that. Now, I'm wondering what would happen if I took one of those little teeny, you know, flat batteries and just stuck it right here. I don't know how much it would impact the air intake, because that's actually a lot of the air intake right there, I do believe. Maybe not. No, it's probably not. So that probably would impede it. Probably shouldn't do that. Yep, we're back to, if we're going to do it, it's going to have to go under the seat mounting here somehow. That's about the only option we have. Anyway, let's fire it up here and let's get our meter out and let's take some measurements and just see what the heck we got going on here. But before we do that, we're going to need to put some fuel in the bike, and we may as well set the factory OE tank back on it while we're doing it. Already looks different, doesn't it? Now we got to temporarily set the seat back on there, I guess, and figure out how to do this all in such a way that this doesn't short out. That looks pretty good there. I'll just tuck all this back down in there. Just going to set the seat on it for a second so I can hop up there and kick start it. Once we've done that, then I'll pull all this back out while it's idling, and we'll have a look-see. Wow, that looks like a completely different bike just by changing the tank out, doesn't it? That's amazing. All right, let me stick some fuel in here and we'll crank it up. This is efficiency right here. I already see a problem. Actually, let me stick this cap back on here. I have a leak. Looks like coming out of the petcock. Oh, it's actually coming out of the bottom of the tank where the petcock joins it. Well, let me see if I can fix that. Guess we're going to need to empty the tank out, because we're going to have to reseal down there where that petcock attaches. So I'll just drain the fuel, since it's good fuel. If you don't have one of these right here and you do anything in the garage, go get you one. This is a jiggle siphoning rig. Watch this. Put one in the bucket and just start doing that right there. Full on siphoning. There it goes. And it'll empty this tank, I mean, in a minute or two. I'll stick a link down there where you can find one of these, because, and for what they are, you couldn't get any handier than this. And there it is. That tank is empty. Easy peasy. All right, get the tank back off. We'll get on the bench, have a look at it. Well, the leak is in this department here, so let's just pull this petcock off and see what's going on with it. Definitely had plenty of torque on the screws, that's for sure. Okay, so basically all we were dealing with here was an O-ring that actually has a split in it. Simple as that. Okay. Had a little bit of crud at the bottom of this tank, but man, overall, for a vintage 86 tank, that's pretty doggone clean, as far as I'm concerned. Even if it does leak, it's okay. All right, time to go to the O-ring department, see what we got. The old O-ring kit. I guess the thing we're going to do is just try them until they, actually that one right there is pretty doggone close all by itself. Let's see. We might be able to go up one size, maybe. Yeah, that one right there. I'd say that one right there is going to seal us up just right. At least I think. If not, we'll pull the other tank apart and we'll pull the O-ring out of it, because that's just how we roll. I'll spare you the details. Suffice to say, that didn't work. This O-ring here is extremely thick. It's way thicker than a normal O-ring, so I have a feeling that's what's going on. So it may be that we have to just go and buy an actual O-ring for the tank. I don't know. We'll know in a second though. Let's see what this one looks like. That looks okay. What do you think if we just take this one and just pop it in the other tank? I'll say yes. Maybe that'll work. That is a full tank of fuel. No leaks yet. Cross fingers. Okay. Get the bike back inside, finish up. All right, let's cold start it. And by cold start, I mean it is absolutely, hadn't been started in about a week, 2 weeks, past a week. The seat is just sitting back on here. I don't have it, you know, put back on, but turn the fuel on, choke's on. Hold the decompression lever. I'm going to go down one time, maybe twice. Then I'm going to come up and find top dead center, which is the hard part. Right there it is. trying to find a ground. Ooh, my face is washed out. It's rough. So I can have one hand. Anyway, let's see what we got for voltage here. 14.0. Too hot. Okay, so this is probably not going to work for the Trail Tech, because when I rev the bike up on the positive side here, I'm getting all the way up to about 16 volts. So I believe that this is just a rectifier and nothing else. I don't believe this is doing voltage regulation. So I need to find something that does do voltage regulation. Otherwise, if I do put a battery in there and this thing's getting, you know, 16 volts when you're revved up, like riding down the road, that's going to be way too hot. It's going to end up cooking a battery, and it'll probably end up cooking the electronics of the Trail Tech. So we'll have to find something different to do for that. But at least now we know which direction we want to go. I want to get a small, flat, maybe like an RC car battery, 12 volt. And I'm going to get rid of these capacitors and replace those with that, and then I'll try to find a regulator / rectifier. So and I'm gonna look the part number up and see what this actually is, but I think it's just a rectifier. It just takes however much AC voltage is coming in there, converts that to DC, and the more AC you throw to it, the more DC it puts out. So I think that's what's happening. Maybe we do move forward, because check this out. I have never in my life seen, I just happened to look at the destructions. Let me see if I can get you where you're not so washed out in the light. But check this out. For use on 6 to 400 volt DC / volts AC systems. Holy cow, that is a range. Freaking kudos, man. Most things that you look at that are DC, they're like, ooh, it has to be between, you know, 11.5 and 14.7, otherwise it'll explode, let smoke out. Vapor will operate in the range of 6 to 400 volt AC or DC, but will not draw enough power to drain a vehicle battery. Use a voltmeter to confirm 6 to 400 volt DC AC. Vapor is polarity independent, so it doesn't matter. It can't be installed backward. Well, I'm liking this better and better. Well, let's install it. Let's just install it, because I can't hardly stand it any longer. Here we go. For those of you guys who haven't seen one of these before, this is essentially what it is. It's just a little small trip computer basically thing that you install up there on the handlebars, and it tells right there it'll do speed, tach, temp, and what time it is, which I guess that's important. I don't know. It's pretty simple. It just uses these handlebar clamps in order to mount. It only attaches to one side, so you know you can literally just install one of these clamps, whichever one works for your application, and you're off to the races. We have a couple of wiring harnesses. One's going to go down to the cylinder head. One's going to go to the front fork or around the spark plug. One's going to go down for the speed sensor. And for the speed sensor, we just have a couple of bolts here. One's magnetic, and you replace your caliper bolts with one of these, and that's how it reads to tell how fast you're going. Jump in there, tell it what size tire you got, and you're off to the races. No, I am not sponsored in any way, form, or fashion by this company. They don't know who I am, nor do they probably care. But I've known about these for a while, and for an off-road bike, they're pretty cool. So that's what we're doing. Let's go over and figure out what we're going to need to do first. So the way this thing mounts is it's got this base that goes on it, and then on the side is where the handlebar mount goes. So You pretty much have to mount it on the passenger side of the bike. And it looks like it's gonna go, let's see, I've got a couple of these different mounts. One of them's for the big bar, that's me. And it looks like you might be able to just kind of slip it right on here. I don't know if that'll actually work or not, we'll find out. Oh, it's so close. All right, so I'm gonna have to loosen up the handlebars a little bit and kind of pick them up just a little bit to get it in there, but I think this is going to work. I'll probably just go ahead and loosen or take this whole retainer off on this side and then loosen the other side, and that should be enough to get me done. Or actually, it may just be able to lift it up a little bit, get it down. I don't know. Tell you what, these are low profile bars. I think while I'm at it, I may end up moving these bars up just a little bit too, I don't know. There we go. All right, let's see if that is enough to get this on. Is this even the right size for this bar? I think it is. We'll find out. There it goes. All right. So if we do that, then it's gonna sit like this, which honestly that may be a bit tall for my liking. I don't know. See if I make sure that's the right size. That's the wrong size for this handlebar. This one's the right size. But I mean, ideally I would like it to be further down, you know, under the dashboards a little bit more. But I think right there is where it's going to have to live, because once I tighten all this back down, this is pretty much it. That's all you got. Ideally, I'd like it to be tucked a little bit more. But the handlebars, well, actually the shock tubes come up, the shock fork towers come up so much that that's kind of prevent me from doing a lot of this. I guess that's how we're going to roll with it, just right there. You get a screw and put in that and see if, well, actually, yeah, that's pretty much all you're going to have. I'll just have to tighten it. I'll just have to tighten it once I get the bars set where I want them. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of get a basic install going on here. Just so I know what's what. All right, that's not bad looking. It's not exactly centered, but that's all you got, because the mount's all the way up against the handlebar mounts, and that's, you know, just how it's gonna have to live. But that's a long way from where it was. All right, let's, I guess, start worrying about what to hook up and how to hook it up. First two things I'm gonna mount are gonna be, this goes down to the cylinder head. This is for temperature, and this one goes to the coil, and it's gonna tell us what it's the tack lead. It's gonna show us our rippings. I think I'll probably go ahead and take this tank back off again. I know that seems counterintuitive, but with the tank off, I can route all this stuff and run it optimally. So let me jump in here and get that back off. It only takes a second. Run all this stuff, and then we'll see where we're at from there. For the tack, they want you to wrap it around the plug wire 5 times. So I've wrapped it around there and taped it. But for the cylinder head temp, they want you to put this around your spark plug. Now, in my case, this was way too small for my spark plug. I ended up having to hog it out some to get that done. We'll see if the plug will go back down in the hole or not with all this in place. But anyway, that's how it's supposed to get its cylinder head temp. For the speedometer, the front caliper here, you replace this one bolt. It has a magnet sort of stuck in the center of it, you see. And here's the pickup. It's just two-sided sticky taped up there. Also, I went ahead and put the decals back on the tank at least. And that's really the only thing I did while I was at this. I think this is probably a good place to stop because the bike looks completely different. It's not even the same machine anymore, is it? Let's go ahead and give it a little shot around the property here. Let's see what's going on. Let's make sure the trail tech works like it's supposed to, and everything is as it should be. Let's take a ride. Well, guys, I guess that's going to wrap up this little segment of this XR600R. There's a few more things that we're going to do like we talked about earlier. I guess probably the next time that we have a video on this, I'll probably go ahead and take care of replacing those bark busters and start trying to figure out what we're going to do as far as the electronics go on it, how that's going to work. The trail tech actually surprised me that it runs on whatever the bike has. As a matter of fact, I don't even have it hooked up to power right now. It's just using this little onboard button cell battery on it. That's all that it has. I guess that's all that it really needs. So, you know, I actually may not hook it up to the bike's electronics. If that's the case, that means really the only thing I need to worry about doing is getting a brake light, because I don't believe it has a brake light. Well, it's got a brake light switch on it. So I assume that it has a brake light. I don't know, maybe I should figure that out. But pretty much making sure that it has a brake light. I need to stick some mirrors on it, or a mirror of some sort. I got to figure out how I'm going to do that. But anyway, next episode we'll dive into a little bit more of that stuff. But guys, as usual, I appreciate you watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Tell all your friends about us. Guys, I'll see you next time.